You don't have to fit a mold, because God's favor is not about you. It's about God.
Yeah.
Esther lived in the time of King Xerxes. Now this king, I don't think he was a great husband, just from what I'm reading about him. His wife, at the time, he was having a big party in the palace, and he summoned his wife, and she didn't come, and so he divorced her and kicked her out of the palace and said she could never come back into his presence. Nice guy, huh? So the king was in search for a new queen. And of course it had to be a beautiful queen. That was the first and foremost criteria. And so he had all his men go out and gather the beautiful women. So here is Esther. Of course, I told you she was incredibly beautiful. So she got taken from her home. She doesn't have parents. She's an orphan, but she was raised by her cousin. She had her home and her community, and it was stripped away from her, and she was taken into the king's harem. Troy, while serving as a pastor in Southern California, he separated from his wife of 5 years and began to reconcile his life as a man who loved God, but also a man who knew and who had known for a long time that he was a gay man. With the predominant voice in the church at that time that made no apologies in saying, if you're gay, you cannot receive God's love, Troy did not know where to go. He was directed to pray about being led astray by his homosexual feelings, and the bishop told him to reconcile himself at the pulpit and resign immediately. This man who received a call from God, there was no question he had a passion and a purpose from God, was forced to resign, not knowing what to do, where to go. He got a job at Sears and was later drafted into the army. And Joe started having dreams. He started dreaming things like this, many different themes or same theme, but many different types of dreams, in which he interpreted that he would one day be a powerful ruler, and his brothers, remember he's already a favorite, would bow down to him. Now he made the maybe mistake, maybe not, of telling his brothers. Oh, you all know you tell. If you had that dream, hey, guess what I dreamed? His brothers were not, to say the least, thrilled. At the same time, just timing for Joe, his dad bought him this really cool designer jacket and didn't give his brothers any of it. And so they got a little upset. They continued, they were, talking amongst themselves, and they began to start, we're going to kill him. Yeah, let's kill him. And they threw him in a pit and just waited for the right time. Fortunately for Joe, God's timing is always amazing, a band of Midianite merchants started coming by. And the brothers started thinking, we could serve the same purpose, still tell Daddy's dead, and we could sell him off. We can make a little profit out of this. And so they sold Joe to the merchants. They took his designer coat and covered it with goat's blood, and then they told his younger brother Reuben and his father Joe was killed. Gosh, so much for that lottery ticket to happiness from this point forward, huh? Joe sold into slavery. Esther forced to be in a harem of a king who hated Jews. Troy, miles, maybe worlds away from what he knew God had called him to do, the purpose and the passion that God had given him in life. It's not always easy to be favored of God. Now, see, for Esther, some of it, maybe we could fit it into, it started to come together a little bit for her. Because she was given favor, great beauty was kind of the catalyst to that favor. The king chose her above all other women, and she became the queen. That's not too bad. I mean, maybe she didn't like the king, but she became the queen. At least her fears were over. At least she knew she wouldn't be terminated. She was okay. She was safe from the persecution. She was queen. That's not that bad. But for Joe, it didn't work quite so well for him. See, he also had God's favor and had risen a little bit within the government of where he was sold. He got the favor of a government official and was given responsibility, was put in charge of all his land and his place and his property. He was given authority, favor, but he also was given, I think because of his rugged good looks and charm, he was given the favor of not just the government official Potiphar, but also Potiphar's wife. That was favor he didn't need to be having. See, she made a pass at him, and when he declined, she accused him of rape. So this favor that Joe received, all of a sudden now he was in prison because of it. Troy, after serving 2 years in Germany, returned to Southern California and began to try to rebuild his life as a gay man, not yet knowing how to reconcile his love of God and the person that God created him to be. He had a failed relationship and he tried to take his own life. Around that same time, one of his dearest friends was arrested just simply for being gay. You see, there was legal persecution, there was physical threat, it was a time of spiritual condemnation. It's not always easy. Hear me with that. It's not always easy. Favor may seem sometimes like a bonus. It allows you the honor of your adversaries, as it did Esther. It allows you the preferred, to be the preferred of the esteemed, as it did Joseph. And it allowed charisma to make you a leader, as it did Troy. But it also sometimes takes you to situations that you don't expect to happen. Yeah. See, we like to plan our life out and go, wouldn't that be the perfect scenario? And then all of a sudden, there we are, completely on another path. But we have to understand that God's favor is not about us, and it's not about our purpose. It's about God, and it is about God's purpose. God doesn't just bless us to make us feel good for a season. God changes us so that through us, God can change the world. Amen. And that's what God's favor is about. It's not so we can pat ourselves on the back. And I'm sorry, but I know a lot of really intelligent or wealthy or charismatic people who seem to think that God has blessed them to bless the world. And that's not what I'm talking about. God gives us favor so that we can, in humility, bow down and allow God's presence and power and passion to change the world around us. Again, not about us, never about us, but about God. Now, see, I could talk forever about these stories. I could write a book about them, I'm pretty sure. But I don't have that kind of time. So I want to tell you that these stories are awesome, and you can read about them all. In Joseph, to read about the story of Joseph, begin in Genesis 37. Write that down, because it is a powerful story about the God who gives favor. I'll sum it up for you. This is the Reader's Digest version, so don't think I'm telling you everything. While in prison, a lot of things happened, but one of the things that happened was Joseph gained the ear of Pharaoh. Pharaoh started having dreams, and people in prison knew that Joseph interpreted dreams. And so Joseph gained Pharaoh's favor. From that point, Pharaoh put him in charge of not just the area, not just his house, but the entire land of Egypt. God favored Joseph from the time his dad loved him more, from the time his brothers wanted to kill him, from the time he was sold into slavery, from the time he was put into prison. God favored Joseph for this reason, for this point. And Joseph was able to lead not just the government, but the people through a time of terrible famine, because God favored Joseph.